hey, babe, have you had fantasy? It's a war outside,
Yeah.
and we're making babies.
So bad.
Welcome back. We have Alex again today.
Yep.
How you doing, Alex?
Doing good. How are
Do you
you?
like Tex-Mex?
It was good. Yeah, Tex-Mex never puts you down. It's always
Never
good.
disappoints you.
Never disappoints you. Yeah, it's really nice.
Example, what really strikes you? That's something that you didn't anticipate. Raising children, maybe traveling with them, maybe raising them, education, health, medical stuff, finances, that you didn't really anticipate. Because there are some topics that you kind of can imagine, like, hey, it's going to be this and this and that, but something that really struck you, like, oh shit, I didn't really thought about it or wasn't ready for this. So any of those nature of questions.
Yeah, the big one.
And something, by the way, something that you're comfortable to talk about.
Oh yeah. No, realistically, it's the energy. How much energy kids can withdraw from you? Like, it's the most of the experience people have with kids. It's when you have kids, and they're like your sister's kids, like your
Right.
like your
Not
friends'
your, not
kids,
your direct
not your
responsibility.
direct kids, and you kind of like you've been invited to somebody's home, and you're just spending time with kids, and just like they're kind of annoying, or maybe they're fun, or they're just asking you silly questions, and you play with them. Some guys like just like, oh nice, kids, play with them, and then you're completely missing the part where kids present in your life like 24/7. They don't go anywhere. Like it's not like you can have a break. Like, oh, I kind of don't want a kids for a couple of weeks. It's like it's not an option, and it's the commitment. I'm kind of glad that I didn't think about that, because if you think too much, is that paralysis of analysis. Like you think so much that you end up not having kids. So it's one of the things that when you marry early or when you have kids early in life, where you're not really thinking about it, and then once you become really really rational, you already have kids, you already don't have a choice. I think it's easier to do. So it's not like, I think when I see people having kids when their first kid would be like early 40s or like late 30s, I think for me that deserves kind of applauds, because I mean,
Why you say that?
because by that time it really, you thought about it. It's like having, like for example, like having pets.
So it means it
It's a
wasn't like
commitment. It's really
out of the blue, right?
I mean, yeah, it's more like calculated decision. It's like, okay, I know what I'm going for, and I will go for it because I just want to have it, or no matter what. Like, oh, I have basic human need to procreate and have offsprings. Otherwise, my gene's gonna die with me. So you have philosophical reason that maybe you. I think the worst thing you can have is pressure from your parents, from your friends, and just like, dude, you like 38. Why don't you have family? Why don't you have kids?
Yeah. Or maybe like you might be into religious person, right? You go to church and same group of people, they see you like you either always alone or always single, or you might be married but you don't have kids. And you have always this question, like, we see you year after year, day after day, and then what's going on? You're not normal.
Yeah, no, for sure. And again, I grew up in a religious community. So in religious community, especially like Russian religious community, or like even here, more conservative circles, young people get married really early, and they have kids early. So let's say you're 35 or 38, and you don't have kids, you don't have wife. By that time, they already have like 5 kids, and they're already finishing school.
Like,
Like they just like already past the stage that you're just thinking about. So and for me, I didn't have too many thoughts about like, oh, having kids, it's so tough. How do I pay for that? Do I have a plan? a financial plan? Do I have this whole education idea? How I'm gonna pay for education? How I'm gonna pay for home? What car are we gonna drive? Oh, now need a different car. Like this is something that comes along, and I think it's and a lot of times, whatever we do, this is how it comes. Like when you start planning everything how it's going to be, it's probably not going to be the same thing you plan. But when you just like, okay, I need family and I want to have kids, and you just don't plan, you just go,
Hmm.
and it kind of, and you figure out along the way.
So it's like
Because
very good example of startup, right?
yeah, exactly. And I have the tendency of overthinking and end up, like we already had conversation about it. So I'm overthinking, overanalyzing, and never even start the project because you're just like, oh man, it's so scary, so many things I need to know, and I'm probably gonna fail. And why even starting if I'm gonna fail anyways?
Mm.
So it's like it's the same thing, you know. Some people rationalize marriage. They say, okay, 50% of marriages divorced within the first year.
Hmm.
I mean, why even marry if I have 50-50 chance? And then next 5 years, the other, 50% from the 50% survive, they're gonna divorce. And then you have very slim chance. And then you're calculating all your life like that. I don't know. I think it's something to do with family, kids, and this kind of life path. It should be like really unpredictable. Like it's like whatever. Let's make it. Let's not even plan this journey.
Mm.
Like whatever happens,
But
it'll
do
be
you want to
little
maybe guide it
surprises.
in some direction? For example, you definitely don't want to have this or that or end up in this place or that place. At least you perhaps would want to avoid those very obvious to you challenges, maybe.
Well, honestly, I honestly think that with kids, it's such a wild road because okay, there's a classic plan. You have a boy and a girl, and they're all healthy, and everything is perfect. And then you see families that have like not healthy kids, like with some uh, autism or something like that. These kids will draw all your energy,
Hmm.
and will draw all your time and maybe wallet. So it's such an so this is why it's a big risk. Like I'm thankful that all my kids are healthy, and we didn't have to deal with hospitals other than just pretty much giving birth and just basic checkups and maybe stitching for a
Hmm.
couple of
How
cuts.
so? How did you avoid hospitals? Because you was able to maintain health environment, or you were able to, with help of your wife, to kind of take care of them at home
I
when they
honestly
get sick?
genetics. Sometimes they just don't have a good immune system.
No,
Maybe not good
let's say
having a
like
good genetics.
have you had a case of like ear infection,
Oh,
or
yeah. This kind of stuff happens all the
so you
time.
just go to the doctor,
No,
or you just wait it out?
we normally wait it out. A
Okay.
lot of so we have a lot of people we know, especially neighbors. For example, we live close. Our neighbor, they always like if they have ear infection, they're immediately in doctor's office
Hmm.
and they immediately do antibiotics. Like
Hmm.
immediately. One thing that we were doing, like with first kids, first like daughter, like anytime she gets sick or like gets flu or anything, we immediately trying to lower temperature. They'll even give the body a chance to fight it.
You was
Yeah,
your first daughter?
yeah.
Okay, so it's learning experience for you.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's like when you never had kids before and the kids is sick, all you try to do just get out of this uncomfortable zone as fast as you can. Just
Right.
like, I don't want to deal with this. Kids are having temperature.
Was it because it was so much stress, or you just was unsure how to deal with it?
Unsure how to deal with it. And one thing we had just some experience when the temperature, our first daughter, her temperature gone so high, so she got unconscious, had a
Wow.
seizures. We had like ambulance, and like it was early, like in our like having kids. Just she was little, and that was this is experience was a little bit traumatic for my wife, and she's like, and she's very much monitoring temperature. Like if this like goes close to 104, it's just like, okay, we need to be careful, monitor
Is
throughout the
there
night.
so what would you do? Like you give a special pill or something,
Yeah, just regular,
aspirin or something?
just bring temperature down, whatever,
Mm.
ibuprofen or anything like that. And when the temperature is not going away for a week, that's where you want to check with doctor. It's just like, hey, there's something serious. Maybe in like 4 3 days.
Did you pick up any kind of loopholes slash workarounds slash tweaks and tricks, life hacks about dealing with make like medical insurances for kids or education for kids? So I know Washington State is pretty welcoming as far as giving uh, different kind of benefits and such for kids, right? Is that true?
Yeah, Washington State has a little bit more programs for kids, and generally, like even if you have insurance or you don't have insurance, so there were times where I did not have insurance and did not have state insurance officially. Like every time you get in hospital, they always have funds to pay for like
Hmm.
anything. Like we had that emergency I'm talking about. At that time, we did not have insurance. That and everything been paid for. Like ambulance been paid by our local by
District.
city, but
Yeah.
yeah, and they say like, oh, you property taxpayer, you're fine. That will cover it. So we hospital payments were also covered by some local because a lot of people donate,
Yeah.
so they
Huh.
have a big budgets of donations. So they normally with kids, they easily cover any of your expenses. Not so much here. Here we had a little, like for example, like we don't have insurance right now.
Hmm.
We applied for insurance here for like state insurance. So, and again, it's super strict. It's only like few doctors, few hospitals you can go. Where in Washington, it's a little bit more chill. But I found out that with kids, most of the hospitals, and especially children's hospitals, they will help you out. Like you're not gonna go underwater because your kid is sick. There's so much help. There are many different programs and many different budgets that are ready to pay for kids. Because I mean, a lot of cities and states realize that people is this is what the country is made of. Like
Right.
if we don't have new people and we're discouraging other people to have make new people,
Yeah.
then the generation getting old, like Japan having
Hmm.
this problem, right? The generation is getting older and older, but people don't make new people, and they kind of they have this gap. And how do you fill up this gap? Some countries figured out, oh, we're gonna open the immigration, like in Europe, but Japan doesn't like immigration, right? They kind of
Yeah.
don't like outsiders.
I haven't seen many people that don't look local.
Yeah, yeah. How are they gonna fix that? I don't know. Like when uh, you talk to young parents right now, a lot of people freaked out to have kids. Like I know it's a big overall. Yeah, if you start rationalizing, yes, kids putting so much toll in your emotions, and you have to constantly take them here, take them there. They're sick, they're moody, but that fills up your life one way or another. So I don't know. Like I'm not really calculative or rational about kids. It's kind of this. Whatever
Okay,
happens
so
the first time you live,
to close this topic, any kind of top three advices that you would give looking back from your experience?
advices with kids.
Yeah, you know, like a 80-20 rule. Like if you take care of these three things, the rest is manageable. Like, but these three are the biggest kind of impactful things. Like
Uh,
what should you not fuck up with?
Honestly, I think it's easier to have kids a little bit earlier in life than later.
Hmm.
Uh,
What is early in your opinion?
my opinion, it's more matters for females because like 27 is the peak of like this is where like biologically they're on top of their like maturity. So anything later, it's getting tougher and tougher for ladies to handle birth, because like first 3 years of every child is sleepless nights. It's when you basically just having so much time dedicated to child. Then, for example, if you late in your biological game, it's just tougher. Just
Mm.
overall, it's tougher. You just like can't handle with that as easy as, like, let's say you have kids in 20s, like late 20s, like you're full of energy, like body recovers super fast. You pretty much, if like ladies have kids at 18, 19, 20, and they like their body didn't even know they had kids. But like if you have kids later, it's physically harder to have pregnancy and everything, but also it's just emotionally harder. Like right now, I can't imagine have a kid like right now, like at my age, like it would be tougher. So that's one thing. But again, like how can it be advice for someone who's already past this stage? So, and again, like once you have a kid, it doesn't matter what part of your life, like time wise, where in the timeline you have kids. It's not even, if you don't have kids, like don't be scared. It's a journey that you can't be prepared for. Like there's no preparation for it. Like maybe you can read, you can have all the data in the world, but once you actually start physically having kids, you just like whatever you knew, you just kind of have to start from scratch because everybody's case is different. It, so just don't be afraid and have them as early as possible, but within the reason, right? Yeah.
But earlier you said that you would applaud people who have kids like at 38 and 40s.
I applaud it. What I'm saying, it's a courage. I mean, I know how much harder it is for them. For the later you're having kids, it's much harder.
Hmm.
So, and it's like, okay, like if you knowing everything, that's like how tough it is, and you're still going for it. That's why, because it's tougher. That's why it deserves an applause
It's
from me.
like
It's like,
a
dude,
person with disabilities runs a marathon, right?
yeah, yeah,
Like extra burden for you.
yeah, yeah. It's like when you for me, it's, for example, you get your doctorate, like you get your doctorate degree when you're like 75, like super late in life. And I know it's much tougher for your brain to get
Right,
education
right,
to
right.
pass test, and you're still going for it and you succeeded. Just like, man, good for you. I mean, maybe you don't need that anymore, that education late in life, but hey,
But
uh,
some people get bored and they just like need something to feed brain.
yeah, I know. I mean, the reasons, I'm not talking about reasons. Like, you can have many, many different reasons to have kids. You know, some people realize that, hey, I'm alone, or some people just like, I feel incomplete. I feel like my circle of, like, I've been born, I grew up, I'm maturing, and I'm kind of not completing the circle of just like producing offsprings, and because you're eventually going away, and you giving the next generation chance to leave the circle.
Hmm.
Because I mean, we all hearing how people, young people, saying like, oh, I'm never gonna have kids. Are like, oh man, it's so bad, it's so tough. I mean, somebody gave birth with you somehow living. It's the result of somebody giving birth. I mean, what if that somebody said, no, I'm not going to have kids? I mean, you wouldn't have a chance to say that. I mean, it is kind of circular argument, but at the same time it is, I mean, you seem like having fun in your life. Don't you want to give someone else have a fun in life? That's how I'm thinking. Like, if, again, we have a lot of friends with a lot of kids, and every time every new kid brings something else with them. It may be tougher, maybe funner. It's something else. That's always a surprise. So yeah, yeah.
Did you ever see kids that are just straight up shit show? Like, like no talent, no gifts. They just disruption for society.
Yeah. No, honestly,
Like this kid never gonna become anything type of thing.
I don't believe that it's possible. Every kid can become something. Kid, like child is a material.
Mm-hmm.
You can work with this material and make something out of a really bad start. You can have really tough beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And really, in my life, I know one case where it was adopted child, and
Mm-hmm.
he was this guy through little boy at the time. It was probably 4 or 5, and he already gone through like 5 foster families, and he was such a tough material.
Mm-hmm.
And the parents never had kids before,
Mm-hmm.
like the ones who adopted him.
Well,
And
that's what makes it tough, right? Though those early re- going through childhood in tough environments makes you tough because you ultimately succeed. You only succeed if you become tough.
yeah, no, but he was super tough kid. Like he got expelled from every school he was into. Like they were tired sending him to new school every time. It was private schools, and then once they start sending him to regular public schools, like everything became normal. Like public school handled him way better. So it's like, again, this idea of education. We need to give people kids the best education in the world. Like education model changes.
Yeah.
And for example, like right now we think, like, I'm not big on homeschooling,
Mm-hmm.
but we know, like, oh, elementary is great for schools, public schools, or any school, but middle school, it's kind of tough in America. This is where kids are super super mean.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have this maturity of understanding that they are bullies, and they create so much damage to them, like to themselves, and like bullying each other. Like it less so much in the high school, where like middle school, and everybody's saying like, oh, middle school is one of the toughest times to really go through, because you don't know yourself, you grown up, you you don't have a legs to stand on. Those kids just super tough, and it's just tough environment. Sometimes we're thinking like, oh, maybe middle school would be nice, like homeschool
To
program.
skip.
Yeah, skip that tough period, and if kids looking for it, and again, it's such a dynamic environment that with family, it's you can try to get as much education as possible. It's nice when your parents are supportive. If you have parents around, they can help you out. Like with our kids,
How many do you have?
four four kids, and our biggest help
I
was,
know, but in case you don't know.
yeah, our biggest help was when we lived. So our my wife's parents lived in the same dead end, same cul-de-sac
Cul-de-sac.
together with us, and there was a lot of help, especially when they're little and we need to have a couple hours away, or we need to go somewhere, or I'm at work and Julia needs, kids to be taken care of. Parents always a great help.
Man, how
And
about neighbors? Do neighbors help each other?
oh yeah, oh yeah, man, great neighbors. It's always, don't buy a house, buy neighbors. It's so incredibly important. Neighbors, and like right now we have great neighbors. Like they can, like, we can send our kid to the
Do you
neighbors for a
think
few
it's
hours.
just your specific neighborhood, or it's just Texas thing that people are helping in
I
this
think
regard?
it's just specific neighbors. It's not even a neighbor. You can have shitty neighbor
Hmm.
in the best neighborhood, or you can have really really good neighbor in like ghetto.
So, what are your thoughts about school location, like wealthy neighborhood, blue collar, middle tier, I guess, economic tier schools? So, what would you want to raise? Which school would you prefer to send your kids to? Where
Mhm.
wealthy people or
Yeah,
regular people?
yeah. This is the thing. That's We had the first elementary school we sent our kids to.
Where was it?
It was in Washington, and it's around. It's basically south of. No, it's north of Seattle, and the communities there. A lot of communities are just Hispanic,
Hmm.
so we like 75% of kids are Hispanic.
Everett?
South Everett,
Uh
yeah.
huh.
So that, and we have like the school rating was tough.
School what?
Rating
R-
rating is low, really. Like
Okay,
it's
so
low
the.
rated
Uh
schools.
huh.
Hispanic kids naturally not gravitating or motivated towards education,
Mm-hmm.
but they're super super nice, super, like, kids are like, their parents are very nice, everybody nice. School was super old, And at the time, I was thinking, hey, like, okay, it's elementary school, it doesn't matter. But the kids are growing up together, and a lot of times it's important who you been hanging out with, like what your connections from school, what your connections from middle school or high school, like would these connections help you in life
Hmm.
to get business going, maybe to know to meet someone who'll help you with something.
Maybe
And
significant other too.
yes, yes, and we're like, I didn't think about this when we were at school, but now I'm thinking back, like I want
When
kids.
you were in school means your kid were in school, not you
Well,
specifically.
not me. Like we didn't haven't even had a choice in Soviet Union. Right?
I
All
mean,
the
you could
schools are
have
the same.
went to different school in your neighborhood. In,
In no, it's when you're in neighborhood, you get assigned to school. Like you don't pick a school.
I don't think we had to, because I know my friend of mine was a period where we had a furniture that had some toxic smell to it,
Hmm.
and parents were concerned about the outcomes of that or results.
Like in Ukraine.
Yeah. So yeah, we had brand new, like we had Soviet era, old school desks and everything,
Hmm.
and we're like, okay, whatever, poor country, poor class.
Yeah.
But then at some point, we got a wave of new furniture came in, and they had some how you call the coat on top of wood. I forgot what's the name, polypropylene or something like that. That was smelling, and smell would not go away. And they had the desks lined up in the hallway just to get the air out and not,
Super toxic.
yeah.
Mm.
So got to the point where parents of my friend, they took him out from our school, went to the school next door, type of thing, maybe like extra 10 minutes away, just
Hmm.
to get away from that toxic smell potentially harming. But we stick around, make this tougher, right? So, but yeah, that's the example where they were able to transfer, and then they transferred him back a couple years later, I believe.
Yeah, no. What I mean in the case where our kids went to school this first time elementary,
Yep.
we didn't think about it. But now we're thinking back, would it be important for kids to go to more maybe neighborhoods that have more educated people wealthier, maybe different layers of society,
Backgrounds.
and yeah, backgrounds, and even for you as a parent, they would give you a chance to meet other parents that do something. Like for example, right now we're in a neighborhood where most of our kids are either have military parents or like oil service, like oil rig drillers and operators, and some and a lot of vets, like, and yeah, just military in general. And we meet like dads, like, oh, what do you do? Like, oh, I'm military, I'm pilot, I'm this and that. And I don't know how much value that, like, knowing these people gives you in life. Like,
Hmm.
they, I noticed like we don't have a lot of things in common, or I don't have something that I want to learn from them. Like I don't want to learn military; it's not very important for me. I don't want to know how these like missiles are firing, or like I'm not interested. And generally, I think it's one of these decisions you make. Maybe I need to start thinking about it more. Just have more calculated decisions on like where your kids are going, like who you're gonna meet and who they gonna know. And on the other side is it's gonna cost more to move to wealthier neighborhood, but maybe this is the investment worthwhile to make.
So let's say previously you said that you don't believe really education really dictates your future or destiny, right? At the same time, I'm thinking as you talk is that what's my point of view on whether kind of professional realm of parents would influence what child would learn from another neighbor child, right?
Yeah.
And ultimately, what matters is that social skills, is the ability to talk or find problem solutions or negotiate or stand for yourself and things like that. And I think that might vary, depends on your age, right? When you, I don't know, 10-year-old, probably military or not doesn't really matter perhaps. But as you become like, I don't know, past 15, 20, and you had higher stages of your upbringing, then perhaps you probably want to start investing time into learning some skill or learning some general knowledge about stuff.
So,
Well, before you learn what friendship is, for example.
yes, my point was like earlier, like let's say 5 years ago, I thought education doesn't matter. Like it's like where you get your education. Uh, the level, let's say the level of education, and I still kind of believe that it doesn't really matter, but network matters.
Mm-hmm.
The people you're surrounded with matters.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you let's say if you raise your kid in on the island that just wild people live there and they have no understanding of life, this is the environment your kid's gonna be raising at. This is what they're gonna see, and
This will be a norm for
and
them.
that would be a norm for them. For example, let's say your kids grow up in a ghetto community, like completely ghetto. Like, what do they learn? Like just using the system, like all this common stuff that keeps people there in this environment. Or if your kids grow up in like wealthy community, bunch of lawyers, people owning businesses, and people generally completely different level layer of life,
Mm-hmm.
and we just like, oh yeah, it's really calculated move, but hey, this is how you shape your own mentality. Like you meeting completely different people,
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna have effect on you as a parent
Mm-hmm.
of their kids that go to school. You're gonna meet different parents, and
Because you
they
can relate on the basis of kids.
yeah, kids would be your common ground.
Bridge.
Yeah, because like, oh, my son, like recently I met the guy, and he was he is a banker, and he works on financing builder building loans,
Developers.
like builders loans. Like if you want to
Developers,
build a
yeah.
house, not developers. If you want to build a house, you as a person, they will help you to finance that.
Okay.
I don't know the technicality. And our sons go to the same class, so we're sitting chatting with each other. He's like, dude, if you need help, I can just hook you up with a loan. And I was thinking about like, oh, if I buy land and I can build, and all of a sudden you meet a person, so now you have a connection point. Oh, your son, like our sons going together, they're in the same class.
So you beyond just a client relationship with a service provider, you become more like a related, you become more like buddies.
Exactly.
You expect maybe even more
Yeah.
personal service.
And I believe this is where the networking will have a great effect on future life of kids. Just like all of a sudden, 20 years after they graduated, they move, and somebody is just already running a business, and you just trying to find connection for your own business, and just like, oh, remember we grew up together. And like normally a lot of kids, they have friends from the street, they have friends from the church or from the school or college. Like, where do you commonly meet? It's not going to be just random place.
Yeah, sports maybe.
Yes, maybe sports, wherever where you've been together. And I think that this is where I completely didn't think about community from this perspective, because I thought like, oh, life is kind of random, everything's random, nothing is calculated. And now I'm thinking back, it's just like, dang, it's important. Like, it's neighborhood is important, school is important, your friends are important. And like, you start thinking about like, do you have friends that you really really want to pick their brain, like you want to know how they do it, like they're so incredible. Or like, all your neighbors and everybody they just like working on the farm, and you completely don't want to be a farmer, you want to be a businessman, and you live with surrounded by farmers. Like, is it a good
Farm is a
environment?
business though.
I mean, farm is a business, but I'm saying like, do you want to maybe
Do you want to be in agriculture? That's what you're saying.
yeah, I don't,
it is a business.
yes, I don't want to bring anyone down by saying like, oh, you farmer, you poor thing. It's mostly like, is it better to be in the society that rings the bell for you, like,
Not society,
community, yes, not society, community, that it's closer to your mentality, to your likes. I mean, generally right now, for me it's more apparent that it's important.
And remember, like, let's say recently, maybe a couple of years ago, Zillow started to add the level of school, I guess, the grading of school, right?
Mm-hmm.
The classification of the neighborhood where you're looking for the property.
Yeah.
So that became like basically top 5, top 10 aspect of considering where to buy property.
Yeah, and this is interesting because like, oh, schools are not great. It's only 3 stars, and people don't even ask how these ratings came to be. Like, what do they really rate? Like, is it bad
And who does
because
it? I don't even know.
yeah, and I never actually dive into these details, and I believe nobody really does. Like, oh, it's just bad schools. What do you mean bad schools?
You know what's funny? In Florida, for properties, if you look at Zillow or maybe Redfin, you know what else they show? Beyond just school and walkability, they show how many years left until it's going to be flooded, or what's the chance of flood.
Yeah.
So like, it's basically a chance per period of time for future.
Yeah.
So it's so funny. Like,
Yeah,
make it
I've never noticed that.
I didn't
But
read
I
film.
noticed the walkability and bikeability. It's one of the scores now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, Redfin, I think, does that flooding situation for Florida, and you see, I think it's like color coded. You see that from 0 to 10, I don't know, like 10%, from 10 to 20, 50%. So basically, they project full flood, full, how do you say, full on flood within 20 years. And so if that's your projective, why would you even invest or buy? Like if you have 20 years to live before you have to be like sat there on the canoe going to your house.
I mean, there's a reason why most expensive insurance is in Florida.
And nobody, as far as I know, get it because it's so expensive.
Yeah, it's expensive, and in Texas, the insurance company losing money on the car insurance,
On a car?
on car insurance policies,
Really?
20 cents on the dollar,
But it's pretty pricey here.
and they're still losing money.
Because
So
there are
they-
so many accidents, I guess.
Yeah, it's crazy.
A lot of
So
accidents.
I recently had a conversation with a guy who owns 15 franchises of Allstate.
1.5.
15,
Mhm.
yes. And they're all in Texas. And he's saying like, so we have bundled insurances where you have your home insurance, your umbrella, your life insurance, all
Yeah.
with Allstate. So and insurance is like, the performance of insurance is like how many cents on the dollar do you pay out. So for car insurance, they pay like $1.20 on every dollar they get.
So they have to do bundle to make back.
Yeah, they have to. They have to make money on different policies to pay for car.
That makes sense because every time I have a chance to talk with customer service of my insurance, they was trying to get you into like renter insurance, something else insurance.
Yeah, it's simply not profitable to have a car insurance, like to have car premiums to be written from Allstate. For like, it's maybe other insurances are different, but I noticed in Florida insurance is just triple what it is here for car.
For car.
For car, it's triple what it is in Washington.
Okay.
Compared to here, it's higher than
Double
Washington, maybe double from like what's.
Because here is higher, yeah.
It is
considerably higher.
It is, yeah.
Because in Washington, I remember I had like I would pay like $300 for like half a year.
Yeah.
For like something decent average, and here it's like double of that. And I remember when I was first got here and I had to put insurance in my car, almost none was available under $1,000.
Yeah.
Like AAA, I think was the cheaper one, and Progressive came like number one in price. But everything else, the normal brands, were like $1,200. Oh, I can make you a deal, $1,300. I'm like, that's not the deal. That's 2-3 times more expensive than they used to pay.
Yeah, you know the fun fact, like I've never, like I never thought about AAA. Is like, what is this? Like everything, AAA towing, AAA insurance, AAA. And I'm like, why is it AAA?
Do you have an answer now?
Yes.
What is it?
Because you have like alphabetical order in different like yellow pages, and you just want to be on top.
Really? Wow, I haven't thought about it.
It's just like, like, oh, what's the towing company? It'd be like AAA towing. Like, you're gonna be like top
So there's no way to be, like you outcompete your
But it's basically
quarters.
like when you
Google,
Google something, like your top 10 searches would be probably at the end of your search.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like
I've recently heard that back at the early days of internet, there were catalogs that would have emails of people. Like it was so few emails back in the day. It would be
yeah,
like 10,000 emails for the entire like country or whatever.
yeah.
It's like Alex, oh, found it. Do, do, do.
Yeah, so what's if you go back to the kids and families, so what's how would you relate to like you don't have kids and I do have kids. We're say, similar
Can
age.
I loan some? I'm
Yeah,
joking.
like what's your main fears or desires or not desires? Like how because this is our generation, right? So we're kind of going together, and in our generation, somebody have a lot of kids, somebody don't even have kids, and what's your main reasons for not, and is it important for you at all? Like should it be important, or is it just like having a I don't know, like having a pet? Oh, you can have it, you don't have to, or it's more fundamentally important to do.
So for me, it was I think changing over my life significant, like this sinusoid graph, right?
Hmm.
Kind of yes, no, kind of in the middle somewhere. So I think early in like when I was in 20s, I think it was. I mean, I think in 20s you have this path that was built for you rather than you build it.
Yeah.
And I think in 20s I had this vision, not vision. It wasn't really pictures. It was more like a understanding that that's the way to go.
Yep.
And I think I was. I remember when I was like babysitting somebody, or younger kids were in a group, and I was the older one. I kind of always had this uh, embedded in me, like make sure they didn't find, make sure like there is no stupidity going on, that somebody got injured. Like I was kind of like thinking for the group, and then so in 20s I had this idea, yeah, yes, I want kids and I want to be like good parent and things like that, and then I would start already thinking like what is good parent and all that. And then I kind of came to the conclusion, well, I think if you want to be a good parent, you need to learn something about life. So better start learning. So it wasn't really intention to learn for becoming a parent. It was more like understanding that I don't think you know much about life yet. So good start right now. And then I think that changed somewhere into, wow, I'm learning, career and everything. Wow, no time for kids, right? Um, and then okay, well, life is no longer as tough as before. Oh, there is traveling. Oh, with kids, no, you're not going to travel with kids. Same as like pets. In pets is a bit easier, but even that is already good indication how something can bring you plans down. So that became more of a priority. These days, um, still like traveling a lot. um, I do think that I got to the point where I have something to share or to teach younger generation, including potential my own kids. I don't think I crossed the line where I said I want to say that, yeah, I want it. I don't think I'm there, nor do I know if I'll be there. um, I think like life is pretty tough out there, right? we have, that's why I think a lot of questions were about whether or not you can plan things or kind of guide things. But even within the last couple of years, even outside of COVID, I think we on the brink of collapse of a lot of systems, and a lot of transformation is going to happen, and we already start seeing a lot of that happening, and that creates a lot of tension and friction between society levels.
Mm.
So honestly, I look at the future quite scared or concerned about what's going to happen, how it's going to impact me, my family, my parents, and such, and whether I have enough knowledge and capability to kind of protect ourselves and who close to me. So so I'm kind of looking back to generation of my parents, like, well, I think your life was a bit more predictable more understandable. Where our life, we live in, like, even technologically speaking, 5 years ago we haven't thought there could be a car that can so drive itself, right? It was more like futuristic books. Now it's already here.
Yep.
We didn't know trucks could be electrical. It's already here. We
Yep.
didn't know AI can fake your entire face, that you wouldn't be able to distinguish whether it's real or not.
Yeah.
That's just technological examples. So we have a lot of things that are quickly changing all at the same time, while we have economical shifts that might completely bring down the entire system. So in this kind of picture, it's really freaking scary to have kids, because outside of what I just said, because you want to make sure you have kind of stable structure, so you don't have to worry about like crime or food shortages or money and things like that, where before it was probably less of a problem. Let's say like homelessness and crime in the streets picked up significantly last 3 years, right? Despite COVID, I think it happened even, I mean, that made it worse, but even if we wouldn't have COVID, I think we would still have a rise of crime, like Los Angeles, California in general, Seattle, Portland, Chicago, New York, Miami, all these big cities significantly got worse. So even that fact alone, like even we talked about was no homeless here 3 years ago, now it's different. So all these factors, I'm in the point where I didn't cross that line, if it will be my decision.
So generally, it's basically because of our times changes so rapidly, it's kind of scary because it's not stable enough.
I think it's overstatement that it's scary, but it's definitely concerning.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I wouldn't be able to handle it. It's just it'll be much more stress than I would want to enjoy if things would be like kind of more or less stable. Like, I know they're not going to be stable. Like, that's almost a fact.
Yeah. I can definitely relate to that. But to me, what's interesting, I'm looking back in time, uh, during wars and during the horrible times, people always had kids.
Right.
Like women gave birth into like in like destroyed homes. Like even like what's happening in Ukraine right now, like ladies giving birth in freaking basements.
Well, they weren't got pregnant before February, right?
No, they already. What I'm saying is like we are kind of in the same boat of the time. So everybody in the same boat. And when you feel like, oh man, it's so scary, but at the same time, your neighbor will have kid.
But you see, I think we can look at it from multiple angles. Everybody can have kids. I mean, physically speaking, right? The question is, are you concerned about future or not?
But this is the thing. If there is no humans, future doesn't matter. Like for humanity.
Well, we're not saying it's going to be atomic bomb blow up.
No, I'm saying like, for example, if it was, let's say, everybody not having kids, or we don't, because
did you just say Japan?
No, yeah, Japan. No, this is where I'm thinking that like if we stop making more people, the nation disappears.
Right, that's true.
So we're relying on immigration, and immigrants come. It's noted they once you have a higher level of life, then you, not it's even the quality of life.
Quality of life, yeah.
And people having less kids at this amount. And it's interesting that the worst times there are people having more kids. It's more like survivability.
So I think I wanted to allude to that in my previous statement, because think about like how when people go gambling, when they have the least amount of money, right?
Yeah.
Same thing. I think it's this emotional factor kicks in, like, whoa, shit, I don't even know, like, let's just make kids, you know? Like,
it's like, man, there's a war around, let's have kids, right?
Let's make it exciting.
Yeah.
Like, hey, babe, have you had fantasy? It's a war outside, and we're making babies.
So bad. We have nothing to eat.
Oh, that turns me on.
No, it's interesting that, like, I don't know. I was always curious that like I do have my younger brother. He's 35. He doesn't have kids,
Hmm.
and he kind of like, oh yeah, maybe I don't even need to have kids. I'm like, need or want?
Hmm.
Because there's no there is expectation from society like that, but there is no expectation holistically. Like you
Hmm.
don't have to. No, there's no like universe just wants you to have kids. No, like
Parents might want you to have kids.
yeah, the grandparent they want to be grandparents.
So I was thinking about this thing, like the idea of overriding instincts type of thing, right?
Hmm.
So let's say, and I had to do that when I was learning how to trade. We had fears, you have greed and things like that. I usually had fear rather than greed. But what happens is that you need to notice that there is emotion of XYZ
Hmm.
and say, okay, I did notice you. Now, is it really concern or should I try to overpower it and remove it? So same goes with like biological topics, like gambling, party, entertainment, making kids, and hunger and things like that. All those are emotions and body trying to tell you something. Hey, you are typical Homo sapiens, whatever. You need to do X, Y, Z, and you're like, okay, yeah, I noticed you. I'm hungry, but I'm not gonna eat. Or you tell me to make babies, but I'm not gonna make it. So it's more rational decision rather than but rather than going by what body is calling.
Yeah, but there's a reason why this primitive voice exists, because like you need to eat, you need to eat, and like override, 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 and like you're dead, like after several months of
Yeah,
overriding, right? So it exists because you need to survive.
right.
Same thing, like if everybody like you need to have kids, but it's tough time, override, 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 boom, no humanity. It doesn't matter all of a sudden. monkey,
Well, doesn't matter
monkey.
to you either because you're dead.
Yeah, yeah, it doesn't matter. Like at this point, like uh, overall, like there again, there's no intrinsic value
See
to have
how
kids.
fast we got to the existence of reason to live type of question
Yeah,
within
yeah,
45 minutes.
yeah. Philosophically, like, what's the intrinsic value of life and having kids? No, it's a journey. Like honestly, you didn't ask for life. I didn't ask for life. We
Hmm.
just our parents didn't ask our opinion. They're just like, hey, let's have Dimitri and Alex, and Dimitri and Alex are here struggling
Yeah.
and having
No,
fun. Like,
I think I was kind of I have I was able to build kind of honesty relationship with my parents. So I was asking this, not asking, but discussing these tough questions, like, hey, you should love your parents. They gave you life. You should be grateful. I'm like, really? I didn't ask for it. Life sucks.
yeah,
I have to go to work, pay taxes, and make sure I'm fit and do this. And blood samples might not always come up great. You have to go to doctors. So let's be honest, life not always great.
and you're
Mostly,
gonna die at the end.
you're still gonna die at the end. Well, it depends how you look at religiously, right? You might not die. You might go to some other
Well,
heaven.
we know beyond the shadow of doubt that the biological body dies. This is
Okay,
some.
biological for sure gonna die. So yeah, I was able to bring these arguments like, yeah, I would not necessarily agree with you folks, and I think they themselves started like thinking like he's right. But I remember you was talking
Stop
about your.
thinking, them son.
I think you was bringing this point about your daughter was coming like from school or something, and it was like something was going on. And it's like, Dad, life sucks type of thing or something.
Yeah, you're just 9. It's not supposed to suck for you yet. You're not supposed to understand it yet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean this is it.
yeah. So for me, honestly, I think life is just a movie, and just because you know the movie is gonna end, you're not
Mhm.
gonna stop watching it.
Yeah, I think
It's
this is
interesting.
this is crucial point is understanding timing, and I like remember it was an app early on in like smartphone days came up really early was when it was just few of them in App Store. I remember one was it's called Days 4 or Days 2, something like that. Idea was that there is just the icon of the app on the home screen,
Yep.
and somehow it had ability to have its own timer, and you can add reference point. Let's say, yeah, my birthday is my birthday, and it start ticking like a timer towards the date, showing you how many days left. And somewhere, I think it was in the book, it, people would set it to your estimated time when you're gonna die. It showed you how many days left, and it keep on ticking backwards. And you look at it every day on your home screen. You're like, oh yeah, this is real. It's not hypothetical. You're gonna die, so make decision about who you're with, what you want to do. Do you
Yeah,
have anything that you want to do? And start asking this question because it's ticking.
yeah. It's like having huge watch on your wall, and you constantly know, like, oh, just your time is kind of melting.
Running down, yeah.
It's no, and again, we try not to think about it. You kind of want it's like looking at your banking account where you have nothing, right? You don't want to look there. It's just like, no, I don't want to log in. I know it sucks. I know life is short, and I think one of the reasons that I'm excited to have kids is it's my ability to live forever.
Hmm.
Essentially, it like in form of my genetic pool. Like I know I can't like my consciousness cannot leave. It's because my consciousness can be forever, but the brain is not able to sustain its life term
Hmm.
longer than
For
100
now,
years. For now, yes,
for
for
now,
now. Well, I mean, we are in this time frame,
yeah. I
and
think, I
we
think,
locked in the
I think even
timeline.
at this level of technology and knowledge, I think us can probably definitely outlive 90. I think we're right now like late 30. By
Mhm.
the time we'll get to like 50, 60, that's nice enough gap of time for technology and bioscience to really improve
Yeah,
their act. So I think 90 is almost guaranteed.
yeah. No, this is the thing. I think that technology definitely changes, and a lot of people. So for some people I talk to, they're really comfortable that, oh man, like I'm kind of happy that I only got to live like 60 years or 70 years, because this future is so scary. Like, whoa, there are gonna be wars, and the really doomsday mentality, especially like religious people have this.
What's a typical case? What?
Typical case is that the end of times,
Okay, so
that
they
the end of
afraid of.
times in like religious literature is something bad. It's like
So they
Armageddon.
picture they almost can participate in it, but if they die early, they don't have to
They kind
live.
of, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, they kind of
yeah,
have
yeah. So basically,
outsource it basically.
so your boat is sinking,
Hmm.
and your death is gonna be like drowning, and you don't like this kind of death, and you just like uh, die from a bullet of like some enemy on the
Right.
deck of a boat, and you're just like, oh, I escaped the this worst,
Yeah.
this really
I mean,
bad death.
if you believe in that milestone, then yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. If you believe that, because like if you are raised in a religious community, they totally be like, for example, like I grew up in a Christianity. Christianity 100% believes that we are at the end of times, and it's funny. Like every generation believes that for thousands of years. So basically, everybody who believes this, they believe that your generation is the last one, because in the Bible it says in the end times there are going to be wars, there are going to be like floodings everywhere, and it's people going to be dying in masses, and like big sicknesses and like pandemics, and we see that, so it totally matches predictions.
Yeah.
Like, dang, yeah, it's going to happen in our generation. My grandparents died with this mindset. They completely knew that their generation is the last one. My parents, my dad thinks that his generation is the last one, and like the new generation thinks the same way. So when you think from this perspective, the future doesn't look right. It looks bad, because it's just a big war and Armageddon waiting for you. It's nothing to be excited about. It's much more exciting to die because you go to heaven. Like it's such a great idea. And every time you bring up the thoughts that, hey, you're just gonna die and that's it, and there's like, oh, life has no reason now. Like, why leaving or why dying?
And this might explain low motivation to start businesses and do something big and creative, right?
Exactly, because you know that, like in Christian religious mentality, like life is temporary. You just come here to make a right decision, pick the Jesus, making sure you pick the right God, and you go to right heaven and don't go to the wrong hell, it's this kind of idea. So you go to the right heaven, so like you pick the right God, and everything is, so from this point of your decision, life doesn't matter anymore, because you just go to heaven, everything will temporary, everything will be burned here, the earth not gonna survive, and we just like all the future just suck, and it looks scary. And I have a lot of friend of mine that have this mentality of like, oh, innovation, progressivism, everything changes, like, oh, it's so bad, like, oh, now like all these people we don't like are around, all this sexual
Sorry, what?
orientation is around.
We don't like which people around?
Like, for example, like right now, uh, people you don't get used to, like for example, like transgenders,
Uh huh.
homosexuals,
Uh huh.
or like women got the same right as a man. Like in the religious communities, this is just like 100% end of times.
Oh, that's a definition of
That's
end
a
of the. Oh,
definition.
okay.
Yes, it's just like the society completely deteriorates. There is no moral code. Morality falls apart. Once that happens, that's it. That's
Hmm.
the end of times. And I think that from this point of view, it's really tough to make a decision of having kids, because like everything is coming to the
Going
end.
to
That's it.
shit.
This
Yeah.
is this is it. We are last generation. What's the point?
Yeah.
It's like
Our
you
mission is
you know
done.
your company is about to bankrupt. Why to do a new release, right?
Nah.
It's just like I knew my project is coming to the end. Like I worked in one of the projects in a different company, so we know the project this version is dying. There's new version coming up, and you just working on the release, and just like, why?
For people who don't know what release is when a software company
Yeah.
releases a new version with updates, like features, so just improvements or not improvements. A
Imagine
lot of
we
times,
we trans okay, let's do more. We transferring to completely electrified vehicles. Like every car is electric. And imagine yourself working somewhere like in Ford division making like a gas like some Ford Focus, that it's just no longer a future. It's just like gas Ford that nobody will buy, and you're just like, why would I work here? Like you're completely losing any motivation to go extra mile for something that it's no longer
and
relative.
and that's I think those people who really got scared right now because unless they picked up skills, so there is a corporate decision to move into electrical, they're like, oh shit, my skills will be really obsolete in 5 years because I don't have like battery or electrical engine or thermal type of
Yeah, all your life you've
knowledge,
been building the internal combustion engine, and you have
and it's
engineering
completely
degree,
different
and now like
design.
exactly, and there's no combustion engines anymore. Just like, oh, maybe I can apply my skills to the like bigger combustion engines for like locomotives. They're still alive, and you're just prolonging death that eventually gonna
Yeah,
happen.
and the another idea on top of that is that you become nature resistance for progress because you want to prolong your existence within capacity of some skill.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I think this is where conservatism comes. Is like when you try to hold on to the past, and conservatives right now, I think, are more apparent because everything changes so fast that like people who stay, like my older sister, she just recently got a cell phone. She was resisting this technological change
Mm.
for so long. She's like, nope, I'm not having it. It's evil. I'm not having it. And now like everybody have it.
Just like that,
Yeah,
just evil and that's it.
it's like now you're gonna be a part of this, like all these evil corporations and like people exchanging data and all this, like just basically it's just works of devil. This technology is works of devil. It's so progressive. It sucks in all the minds of people, and people all of a sudden now are in the phones, and it looks scary. Now everybody understand that the cell phone is just our
Tool.
extension. It's just extension. Like
Mm.
it just basically our data, our communication, everything is here. It just might as well become our part of us now as a new. stage of
Yeah, soon
evolvement.
iPhone gonna be uploaded to your hand.
Yeah, yeah, but like extension, you just basically plug in this electronic device on the day of birth, just help you to learn
I
things
wanted
fast.
to quickly go back to this topic about life in general. So back in the day when I was driving to California for work, I had a lot of time to listen to podcasts and such.
Mhm.
So I remember was I listened the audiobook of you know gentleman Jordan Peterson, right? He had a couple books, and I was listening. I think Maps of Meaning or something like that. And there was a interesting idea there where how do suicide bombers operate? Like how their brain operates, like outside of politics and economical reasons. Like I may pay you to blow up yourself and others, or you might be pro certain political decision. Let's imagine you straight up crazy bomber, right?
Yeah,
So he put it in an interesting way. If you, for a second, and we already kind of discussed it, believe that life sucks in general, in a lot of dimensions, more often than not, then it becomes reasonable to assume that if you take out yourself and others, you effectively saving yourself and others from this nightmare. So there is probably a reasonable number that can be associated with this type of thinking.
yeah. No, it's but this is the thing. Like I know I heard this like when the mass shooting happens. Sometimes they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm saving people from this miserable life," or and then like, dude, like I never asked you to take me out of from my miserable life. Maybe my life is miserable, but it's interesting. Like I'm interested what's gonna be tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow's every day is a bad day. You know, what's the worst day of your life? Today.
Tomorrow's gonna be worse.
Tomorrow's gonna be worse.
A year ago was not so bad.
Yeah. So I honestly think that then this idea of just uh, apocalyptic idea that our generation is the last one and everything just uh, going bad, like it's only worse. I, if you look in different perspective, this is the best times humanity ever been.
Yeah,